Continuing our journey through cancer season, we are now finding ourselves coming back up to the throat center after having just traveled through three different gate activations within the root center of ourself. So, as a little recap, the journey through the root center was giving us a lot of pressure in the form of stress to evolve. So we really looked at what was causing our irritations, noticing how stress affects the body, noticing where there are blockages within the energy flow and how to really open that up within yourself, and really looking at our tendency to avoid facing the things that are uncomfortable until we become willing to sit in the wisdom of knowing the power of our own self-actualization. Having taken that journey through those root center gates and now finding ourselves coming up back into the throat center, we're entering through what is known as the gate of expressed details. So we're going to examine the shadow energy here of intellect, which is coming from our mind, and it's based on a desire to have the facts. We're going to move towards the gift aspect, which is about precision, getting the clarity, being able to cut through the illusions and reaching our sights towards the highest light aspect in here, which is known as the Sudi of impeccability. Being impeccable with our thoughts, our words, our deeds. In the teachings of the I Ching, which is known as the Book of Changes, it states that your logical organization of all matters in life become possible through attaining to all pertinent and relative details. When you express logical thoughts, it does not mean that they're always completely correct or have to be acted on. They are just logical thoughts. So when we're looking at your human design chart, you're going to want to check first of all to see if you have your throat center colored in or if it's white within your own human design body graph. And when you have the center colored in, you have very consistent energy that is here to support you through your voice, the way you metabolize energy, the way that you express yourself, and it is leading towards the power of manifestation. When you have that white within your chart, you are absorbing the energies of the environment around you. So you do not have a consistent voice. You are able to have many different voices, many different expressions, and being really mindful as to how you metabolize the energy of others. So how you're taking in someone else's energy and perhaps feeling that it belongs to you, and how that also affects your own ability to express your truth. So within our human design body graphs, all of these different energy centers, these shapes that you see, they're all trying to make their way out of the throat center. It is our human desire to be seen, to be heard, to express ourselves, to manifest. But it's important to recognize that we live in a world of shadows. We're taking in a field that has been highly conditioned. And when we try to express ourselves to that energy, it very often falls on deaf ears because nobody's listening to that. And we become very frustrated because it feels like we're going nowhere and we're not being seen. When we learn to really come back into ourselves, to learn about our own unique self-expression, then you're going to recognize what is of your truth, what is not of your truth, and most importantly, really paying attention to the details of how your energy and your system works in relationship to yourself and responds in relationship to the whole. So this is where we see how the macro, the universal energies, influence the micro, which is yourself. We also see that out in the world of business, where the world of economics, the macro going ons of governments and organization affects the consumer, the micro, the smaller component of that journey. So in this example, we are leading ourselves towards a voice and a self-expression that is all about I think or not. So this is coming from the mind. It is processing information coming down from that ajna center. But it's also about having an eye for the details and the facts. So it's getting to that clarity in there. But where is the clarity coming from? Is it coming from the small I, or is it coming from the bigger I am? So it is providing an energy for us that is sifting through. It acts very much like a filter. And it's taking all of this very complex information, it's dissecting from that. What is relevant? So it might be hearing through a tone of voice, it might be through seeing something, it might be through scanning documents, having lots of research material, and really just being able to pinpoint what really matters. And taking the time to go through that process of sifting through, you are then bringing forward those important pieces that then create the larger picture, bringing you to a place of clarity. When it gets to that point of clarity, it starts to express itself through that voice of sharing those findings in a way that feels very confident because it sees, it believes, it knows. The voice is often very authoritative. It is very logical. It has the information to back up by supplying the details, supplying the facts. And a lot of times it's expressed through the voice of, I think you will find, or I think what this is. And it's really important to kind of observe yourself using that language, I think. And I think provides us with a very big clue because it means it's coming from the mind. I think is very different than I feel. So you want to be aware of your language within yourself, the language within others, and get really curious about that. Leaning in deeper to pick up through the tone, through the energy, through the vibration, through what you are sensing, feeling, seeing, hearing. We want to open up those energy fields to really now know that you are more than just this physical self. So there is a doorway here that opens us up to clear communication and really helping us to understand what is it that needs to be understood. When we look at its relationship to the potential channel of the organizer, which is its connection to the ajna center right above it, this is really then opening up an energy flow for us that is helping to bring things into an organized sense. So again, you want to check your human design chart to see if you have this channel already. And if you do, this is one of the main components of how your energy works for you. When we look at how gate 62 is kind of drawing energy from the mind, and in this case, the Ajna Center, which is all about doing its research, putting things into certain patterns, being able to make sense of information. And again, it's either going to come from your mind Or this is the third eye opening. It's going in deeper into those spaces that are beyond our own perception of reality. It is triggering what is known as gate 17, the gate of opinions. And the world has a lot of opinions. We have a lot of opinions. And we can really look at the power of our opinions and consider for ourselves, is this another blockage? Am I stuck in my opinion that I'm keeping the blinders on and not considering multiple opinions? Am I stuck in the mental components of the mind and not branching out to understand that there is more going on in here? And to also acknowledge that there's a natural fear that resides in this energy. And in this case, there is a fear of having one's opinions be challenged. So there's a pressure in this energy of having to have the details to back up one's opinion. And it's very natural for us to reach a conclusion, have a preference, have an opinion. Oftentimes, this is felt deep within your body. The body just knows, but the body cannot explain why it feels a certain way. So we have been taught to develop the mind. The mind is a mechanism to try to make sense of the world around us and to offer up reasons, backing it up with proof and examples and memories to support the opinion that you have regarding a certain situation. So we want to really lean into our awareness here of how afraid are you when your opinions are challenged? How much does it affect your body, your heart rate, your breath, your stress levels to feel that you have to prove something? And do you tend to discount the inner knowing because you cannot prove something? Now, it's also stimulating through that energy flow, then, our gate of express details, which we are in right now, stimulating logical thinking, organizing, strategizing, and expressing ourselves in a logical sense. This can also be seen as the process of elimination, using the power of one's common sense. So a lot of times that can be applied to you're feeling a fear of somebody challenging you, but then your logic is going to come in and say, well, why are they challenging? Are they looking to pick a fight? Are they feeling their own insecurities? Are they needing to receive the information in a different way because they don't understand? So it also gives us the power of really stepping into the wisdom of feeling the energetic expression in the vibration to lean in deeper and gain the clarity on what is it that is really needing to be expressed. And then using the energy flow, the power of one's voice, the power of discernment to present one's findings, one's different perceptions, to create that picture to help somebody sift through all the moving pieces of what is going up in their own mental processing, to then extract and bring forward that clarity. This is often where we see the teacher having the gift that then allows the students to understand what is to be understood. And reminding ourselves that we're all a student, we're all a teacher, and there is many moving pieces within the world around us. That throat ajna connection, it also creates a lot of pressure to speak one's mind. So if you have this channel in your human design chart, you speak your mind. You can't help but share the thoughts, share those visions, share part of your articulation process, your research process. There's not so much of an energy there of holding back from speaking one's perception of the moment. And it doesn't necessarily mean speaking a truth. It means sharing because of the pressure center in there, whatever is coming through in your own processing as you're learning to organize out your information. Now, because of this pressure, it is also really important to gain your maturity in understanding the importance of timing. A lot of times you might be able to see very clearly in a conversation of what the next step should be, or be able to help somebody formulate what it is that they're trying to express. But if there's a tendency to interrupt somebody, or your timing is off because the other person is so caught up in their head that their ears are closed to listening, you're going to waste a lot of energy providing information that's falling on deaf ears. Or you're going to frustrate a lot of individuals if you're cutting them off and they're not allowed to allow their natural processing of information in their way to come through. So you may find that it's really easy for you to articulate your own self-expression, whereas if somebody has a white throat center, they may find it very difficult to allow their own voice to come through. They have to filter through, first of all of the information that they're picking up from others through those communication channels to then dissect in their own way what is relevant. So when we create an awareness into the timing of our own delivery, how we organize our own thoughts, making sure we have our own clarity, we understand what it is that we're being guided towards. We are walking the journey, first of all, before sharing that with others. That is where you really demonstrate some powerful leadership skills. There is nothing more powerful than walking the talk. Instead of just being someone that tells everybody else what to do, but yet they can see in the reflection of you that you're not honoring what it is that you are expressing. So a lot of times, especially through the channel of the organizer, we can see very clearly what it takes to organize something, to help put somebody's life in order, a business in order, to organize the so-called chaos. But we don't allow for the natural evolution of change to come in and really embrace some of that wild organic nature that is part of the natural world. So there may be a tendency to not so much be the leader through change, through adaptability, but staying as the controller, the micromanager who is trying to hold on to one's preferred system, one's preferred way of being, and that is based on that fear story. So really listening into yourself to see, how open are you to someone else's opinion, to somebody else's feedback? How open are you to allowing your own expression of your voice to come through, sharing your own opinion? And how much importance do you place into the hands of somebody else to then either credit your opinion or discredit your opinion? And these are all powerful reflecting tools to help us in our own growth. And most importantly, to build a deeper faith within yourself, which is the ultimate goal. So the energy here is really teaching us how to discern between what is presented as knowledge and what arises from the depths of within you as wisdom. And we're going to take a deep journey to really get to know the difference between the two. So this is the point in our journey where we move into what is known as the gene keys. And we are using the textbook, The Gene Keys. This is by Richard Rudd. I do highly recommend that you get a copy of it if that is available to you. And we're going to look at some of the excerpts from Richard Rudd in the next couple of slides as we examine this in a lot more detail. So the gene keys is literally the key that comes in to unlock the gate. The gate being the numbers that are circled in your human design chart. And in this case, opening up the gate for us to express details, gate number 62, and giving us the inner alchemy by teaching us about the shadow of intellect, the dilemma of facts, the gift of precision, and that sudi of impeccability. So let us start by first of all looking at the shadow and the dilemma in here. And, here we have our examples of really going back to school when we were children and having to enter into the world of really developing the mind, our intellect. So, in the words of Richard Rudd, it says in the modern world, intellect is often regarded as a sought after and admired human gift rather as something that might actually hamper evolution. So, a question that I had for contemplation was, have you ever felt intellectually stupid? And even noticing if that word triggers you. Have you heard that word? Does it feel somewhere inside of you? Is there an energy attached to it? Have you ever been ridiculed for your thoughts, your beliefs, or made to feel inferior to someone else who appeared to be more intelligent? And if so, what did the effects of this situation have on your confidence to express your true voice and your willingness to share with others? And going to school is a fantastic training ground for the adult to reflect back on and look at that experience to see how you were compared to others in your own learning style, how you may have learned to compare yourself, how you decided whether you measured up or didn't measure up, how the teachers or others around you were measuring you, and really kind of leaning into your own personality. Did you start to believe that you couldn't do something? Or were you chasing the approval and the applause and the acceptance because you could eventually achieve something? So this is also looking at the different archetypes that we can develop in here when we're taught by society that our intellect is an important measuring tool. And it was really interesting when I did my own reflection because I was aware that even as a little child, a baby coming into the world, we start looking at different measurements. We measure its percentile, its head circumference, its weight, its height. We have all these tools that humanity has developed that tells us where we do or do not fit in. And it's really important to do your self-reflection on that because as the mind develops, and it starts from an early age in that developmental process of how we see the world around us and how we fit into that world around us, that is all bred through the heart, which is our center of self-esteem, self-worth, and a tendency to prove ourselves. So knowing the value of ourself and the value of others. So there's so many ways that the conditioning field can come in, and it really does take root up in our mind to what we believe in based on that inner child within you's perception of the world and how it fits into that definition of the world. So we're going to learn that intelligence has nothing to do with our intellect, our mind. You may not understand something at the level of the human mind, yet you understand a profound truth at the very heart of your being. You just know, but you cannot prove how you just know, and therefore we tend to dismiss it. We're taught instead to develop the mind and back it up with proof and facts so that other people believe us. But every time we reach out there for someone to believe in what is in here, we move further and further away from ourselves. So when we look at that in terms of energy and auric fields, and we have all these different layers of who we are, we're going to learn that at the human condition level, so in Earth school that we're in, which is highly involved within the shadow, our intellect, our mind, has two main objectives. It's going to try to get all the facts to prove that I am right and you are wrong. It's going to learn how to use language as a means to manipulate others, to accept your position and agree with your views, because then that validates that you are in fact correct, which feeds into that self-esteem, which proves that you are right and the other people are wrong, because we live in this world of shadow. We live in this duality that's been keeping us separate from others, and we're taught to compete. So the more we tend to fill up on knowledge through absorbing facts and gathering proof to defend our opinions, the more we're discounting the wisdom that's within the very cells of our being, that pulse of life and the I am presence. So the world teaches us to go look in textbooks, to go to school, to learn all these subjects, to fill up our minds with knowledge, to be smarter than somebody else so that you can get the better jobs and you can earn a better income and you can have more things. That is the structure that our world is based upon. Yet the child of you came into this world with wisdom in your DNA. And that is what this journey through the gene keys and your human design is really teaching you, is to open up those codes within your own DNA that then unleash the greater wisdom from within you. It's not external from you. It's not about going out and learning more and becoming more. It's about accepting who you are and growing that inner child within so that it learns to walk and it learns to run and it learns the power of divine confidence. So when we look at that in terms of energy field, well, your first layer is your physical. Your physical is built between the ages of 0 and 7. This is where you get to know about your body, how you walk, how you move, eye-hand coordination. Then we move into the astral body, which is the emotional body, between the ages of 7 and 14. You're really understanding the importance of your own emotions. You're learning how to use those as manipulative tools to get your own way. You're being influenced by the emotions around you. You may know when it's safe to do something, when it's not safe to do something, what it means when somebody acts in a certain way. So you develop that emotional layer around you. Whether you're taught to suppress those or you're taught to be reactive with those, that is part of that learning based on whatever was happening between the ages of 7 and 14. Then we develop our mental auric field layer, which sits outside the emotions, and that is between the ages of 14 and 21. This is where we really solidify how we view the world and our understanding of the world. So when you reflect back into, well, what was going on in your life between the ages of 14 and 21? Well, that was a highly influential time where you're going through your teenage years into your young adult years, learning how to be in the home, to leave the home, maybe leaving the school to go to post-secondary, or leaving to enter into the workforce, really exploring relationships, figuring out who you are, figuring out how, again, that fits into the world around you. There are so many things that are going on in those 7 year cycles of life. Now, when we get stuck at the level of the mind, we have to figure it out. We have to fit in. And when we can't figure it out, it stimulates the emotions, which then physically affects the body through stress or through some emotional tendency. We get trapped into this loop. We stay in our small sense of self. When we learn to come out of the mind and tap into that third eye awareness, moving into something that is beyond us, opening up to the bigger communication fields, well, then you are starting to step into the soul body, tapping into the higher emotions, tapping into the higher mind, and getting to what is known as that divine will, the God conscious, the source conscious, whatever that energy is to you. But as we can see, as long as we are stuck in the shadow energy of our mind, I have to figure it all out, we'll never tap into that higher wisdom that exists. It's always there, but we close ourselves to receiving that energy. So when we really put a lot of focus on developing our intellect, developing our mind, keeping ourselves separate, keeping ourselves fixed on, I got to solve this problem. I need to have an answer. I have to find proof. I have to explain why this is, why I feel a certain way. I have to explain what the other person is going through. I have to make sense out of what is happening to me. Those are all ways that we're putting that pressure on ourselves to stay trapped in that mental energy field. And that really places us within a cage of our own creation. From there, we're only going to see what we want to see. We're only going to hear what we want to hear. And we're only going to believe what we want to believe. So we begin living in that energy of shadows, the world of illusions, not being able to get past our own deception, our own fear stories that's created by the mind of that child who was just trying to figure out the world around it. So intelligence is of the heart, whereas intellect is of the mind. Our current world is based around the structure of emphasizing the building up of our mental field of intellect, and they use that to determine how you measure up. How smart are you according to your peers? Are you credible in your knowledge? Do you deserve to be treated seriously by others who are looking to build up their own intellect? And a lot of individuals that have gifts, you're here in this class because you very likely have gifts. You have a knowing inside you that is beyond proof. How seriously is that taken in the world of shadows that wants credibility? They want to see a title after your name. They want to know that you are smart enough to pass along your information, which means that is a fear-based mentality of needing proof that you know what you know. Instead of having the openness of the heart and being receptive to the wisdom that channels through us. Knowing for yourself that there is something beyond you that helps you to see, to hear, to feel, to breathe, an extension of yourself that should be taken very seriously and should not be discounted and does not need to prove itself. But yet, how many times do we engage in the world? Do we do things because we're trying to get the approval of others? And every time we do that, we discount ourselves. You hurt the child within. You separate yourself from that relationship with your soul, your truth. That is where we get those feelings of just feeling lost. Nobody understands me. Where the truth to that is, do you understand you? So when we look at credibility, are you building up your own credibility? Are you trusting in the wisdom of your body, or do you discount it because the mind jumps in and says, well, that can't be right. I need proof. And it overrides what the body's expressing. So the more we believe in and we embrace that shadow, the less intelligent we become. And intelligence is that auric field. It's our ability to perceive something beyond the human eyes, beyond the human tendency to prove it. It just knows. It is receptive to that. The mind is going to constantly override the wisdom of the body until you intercept the program that you have bought it into. We have to override the mind. You have to catch that wisdom that says, are you sure you want to do that? And then the mind says, well, I have to. And it does it anyway. But when you go back to that original impulse, that gut instinct, that intuitive nudge, that gentle whisper, and the more you listen to it, you acknowledge it, you honor it, the more you're going to build it in strength. You're going to build up your intelligence, your heart resonance, your gut brain in that, coming out of letting the mind drive the way. Children are naturally intelligent. And when you watch little children, you'll see they have a light shining in their eye, their body is moving freely, their very nature, their essence pulses with the light of creation. And they just naturally know how to express themselves. They're not stopping to think, what do the adults want me to do today? They're playing, they're learning, they're expressing themselves. They are truth emanating from the body. And that doesn't mean that everything is perfect. It means they're going to have good days and bad days and all sorts of emotions and moods and everything in between, because they are wild and organic in nature. They haven't been conditioned as a robot put in this box of this is how you think, this is what you do, these are your responsibilities. That is how we rob ourselves of that inner magic. We become a product of a system that tries to get us to become the same. Nature is not the same. Nature is free. Nature is wild. Nature has its own expression. And you are a part of nature. You are the only one with your thumbprint. You are the only one of you. You have a divine intelligence that is being expressed through you. And that is where we're coming back to bring online to help your light step in front of your shadow. So a way to find that is to really do some contemplation here and ask yourself, What dilutes the light of the child? So, what starts to shadow over that natural ability to just freely be yourself? What beliefs do you carry right now that really overshadow your natural expression? What is your natural expression? Sometimes we become so lost in the conditioning of the mind that we have no idea who we even are. And I know for myself that is certainly a place where I started my own journey from. I did not know who I was, but I did know who I was not. And sometimes we start from that place instead, getting really clear on who you're not. And then noticing every time your behavior goes in that direction, it's like, well, why am I here again? If that's not who I am, why do I keep moving in those circles? Who am I trying to please? What am I trying to prove? And how do I move back to discovering who am I? And that's really a process of building that relationship with yourself, spending time with you and really asking yourself those very powerful questions. We always have two different ways of looking at energy. We have our repressive nature where we really bottle things up inside. We have a reactive nature where we really push it out. We can also look at that as repressive seems to be a little bit more feminine. It is within, it is body. Whereas reactive is usually taking action, pushing it out. That's more of a masculine energy. So we have a feminine side, a masculine side. We're looking to find the balance in the middle of both of those, which is not by overcoming your shadow, ridding yourself of this shadow. It's recognizing and accepting those character traits within yourself. So as we go through these, here's your opportunity to really kind of observe to see, well, are you more repressive in nature? Are you more reactive in your nature? Is there certain situations that cause you to go between the two of them, right? So knowing that we're not just all in one category, you might notice that, well, sometimes you're repressive and it's in these kind of situations. And other times with other people, you're very reactive. So the more you get to be honest with you, the more you're going to start to see your patterns, your self-sabotages, the areas of your wounding, your trauma, your insecurities, and most importantly, they provide the opportunity to intercept the program so that you can call in the gift, which we're going to learn about in a little while. So looking at our repressive nature, this is being obsessive. So it's actually a fear that comes from within ourselves where we obsess about the small details, those small things in life. You might call that being OCD and kind of laughing about it. Does it drive you crazy if there's a pen out of place on your desk? Right? And really kind of looking at, well, where did that come from? Where did that need for that organization and that control, that knowing, that predictability, where does that come from? And a lot of times in that repressed nature, we're obsessing over the small details to avoid feeling one's own suffering. Because when something is out of step, out of rhythm, oh my gosh, the whole world can literally feel like it's crashing. But why? Where does that deep insecurity come from? There might be a tendency here to be nitpicking at others and really focusing on what they're doing wrong, why they're doing wrong, trained to find the fault. And that could be in others and that can be in yourself. And again, asking those questions, where did that come from? Where did I learn how to do that? Were you always examining your environment to notice if it was safe enough for you to be in? Do you have a high tendency to observe all the details because that was your survival instinct? And are you still today needing to be in the position of surviving, or are you the leader to your own reality? Are you taking the time and the energy to soothe those places within inside yourself that need more reassurance, that need to know it's safe and that you can set your own self free? So we often become lost in the mundane world of living a life of those endless details, noticing everything that's going wrong, noticing all the little obsessive things that have to be in order, that there's no room left over at the end of the day for creativity or to try something new or to have a new idea or a new self-expression. It's got to be all in a set certain way. And we can really become experts, especially within our own mind talk, of why you cannot do something, why it's not allowed, why it'll fail, what the consequences will be. So it's also noticing that this repressive nature may not appear in your external world that you can see. This might all be going on in your mind. Your limiting self-belief that obsesses over the small worries, the small details, and all of those reasons why you cannot do what your heart wants you to do. So it's noticing that the mind is focused on the fear story and it continually feeds that fear story with a whole bunch of facts and a whole bunch of proofs that come from memories and come from those I told you so moments that validate the fear. And it's really recognizing that you're training the eyes to see what you want to see and the ears to hear what you want to hear to keep the narrative of your own story alive. And it can be really powerful to notice how that shows up and to see how much fear we actually carry. And again, it's not about getting rid of the fear. It's about wrapping that fear in love, just like a parent would come in and hold a child. It would help a child to learn to grow and evolve in more self-confidence. We have to learn to become that loving parent to our own inner child. That is our process of evolution. That is why it is a self-actualization journey. It's a self-empowerment journey. There are many ways to move through your own enlightenment, but it starts with doing your own shadow work. So when we move now to the reactive nature, that side of things, that is known as pedantic. And it's literally too concerned with literary accuracy or formality. So I may have pronounced that word wrong. I actually had to look that word up in the dictionary because I had no idea what it meant at all. And I had a little chuckle to myself when it came back saying, well, it's really concerned about literal accuracy or formality. This is the way you do something. It's looking at someone else's spelling mistakes, punctuation, expression, correcting them. And it really comes from a deep insecurity that uses their intellect, their mind, as a means to defend themselves. So it'll question everything, but it becomes very defensive when it is challenged. And there's this deep fear that comes from within the body of being wrong and not having the answers. So it's almost like being an animal that is trapped up against the wall. It will come out kicking and screaming. It feels threatened. So it's constantly trying to seek facts and details to discredit somebody else as a means to turn the attention away from itself. And we see this playing out in politics all the time. We just went through some elections at the time of this recording. This is 2025 when I'm recording this. And when all the electoral parties were coming up onto their platforms, there wasn't one party that I saw that was just out there promoting what they were going to do to support change and what their initiatives were, they all came out there to tell me why I should not vote for the other party. And for myself, I went, well, I don't want to know what they're doing wrong. I want to know what you plan to do differently. What is your platform? Where's your energy, your attention going? But we tend to do that. As humans, we tend to look at other people's faults, bringing them forward. We make fun of their mistakes. We make fun of their way of pronouncing things. We discredit them because they don't have the credentials. We look for all these ways to bring them down. But it comes from a deep insecurity within ourselves where we don't believe we are enough. So we believe we have to pull that energy down instead of rising ourselves up to walk as equals. So it tends to really get caught up in the mind where you're constantly worrying, you're constantly seeking new proofs, new facts, new details, new ways of making sure that you can defend yourself, that you can redirect attention, that you have a way out if you need a way out in there. It's looking to solidify why you believe something, why you have that viewpoint, trying to get other people on board to support you, to build that protective layer around yourself that will then help you defend as well against so-called others. It really then closes the door to the mind and to our ears to receive anything new unless it is personally created within yourself, it's usually not accepted. And we all do that. We all wear these blinders, and that's really based on how we were raised, what we were conditioned to, what we were exposed to, what you watched on TV, what you listened to, your peer groups, your culture, your religion, your society, your own experiences, how safe you felt in the world, right? There's so many factors that come into forming the mind and how we cope. And it's only by really looking at our own nature and having those own honest conversations of our behavioral patterns to go, why do I do that? Why do I have to always find the faults in everything? Why do I judge people so hard? Why do I compare myself to everybody else? Why do I have to take this and ask for everybody else's approval? Why am I afraid to express my own voice, to have a difference of opinion? Why do I feel this panic inside me, this nervous nature, this almost obsessive need to want the earth to swallow me up? Why am I so afraid to just be my own self? And the more you can ask yourself those why questions and approach it from that loving parent, I see you, I feel you, I acknowledge you. Allowing yourself to feel safe enough to have that conversation with you, the more you're going to really start building a deeper, trusting relationship and being able to pull yourself out from that shadow, from that suppression. So we're going to move now into the gift of precision, back into that third eye awareness, finding that center balance. We have the right hemisphere, the left hemisphere, which means we have the masculine and the feminine, and we have the divine child within all of that. This is really about the language of light. And when we're looking at that throat center, the throat chakra holds all the vibrations to all the languages in the world ever spoken. Well, the purity of language beyond words is the language of light. It is speaking from the purity of the heart. And it's a process that goes on within us. It's part of our own inner transformation. And it's where the words that we start to speak in our emanations, which is that energy that comes off of them, it really begins to change to serve a higher purpose. So it's where you reach the point of going, there's got to be more to life than this. There has to be another way. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm getting nowhere. It's really wanting to lift yourself out of that darkness. So you start a journey of that inner transformation. You start to try to figure out why. And you go through two stages. The very first stage is knowing that you transform first. The journey starts with you. It's not about fixing the world. You change. And the more that you change, the vibrations of your heart begin to open so that love can come in, so that you can be transformed through the language of love, which means you think more loving thoughts, you feel more loving thoughts, you speak more loving thoughts. Your actions become expressions of love. But it has to go to the self first. Self-worth, self-esteem, self-love, knowing your value. In the context of these teachings, learning to live a life of more than existing. So how might this feel? Well, in this case, in this gene key, if you are of that repressed nature, you're going to start questioning the world around you. You're going to begin to look inwards to question your own obsessive behavior. And when you do so, that often transforms your attitude and it transforms your life. You start catching your self-sabotages and you intercept them, which is life-changing. You start to see from a new perspective. So you're not so focused on that doom or gloom or just trying to see everything through rose-colored glasses. You're being a realist. You're questioning the why. You're giving yourself back power. So that repressive can be seen as the feminine. You got too much feminine energy coming through. So the masculine comes online. You're finding your balance in there. If you are more reactive, your masculine energy is very strong, you're going to stop questioning. You're going to get more of the feminine, that repression coming in there. You're going to go through a natural humbling process where you realize that you are causing yourself your own misery by focusing on the minute and irrelevant details about anything and everything but your own pain. So it actually brings you inwards to be with yourself, to acknowledge that you do hurt, that this does hurt, to get clarity on why it hurts, to claim the ownership and responsibility to make the necessary changes to clear up the pain, to move beyond the pain. And as you become your own witness and take responsibility for that behavior, you begin to really soften. So when you think of that reactive as, the nervous system is on overdrive, the emotions are on overdrive, the stresses are on overdrive. That's like somebody gives you a blanket and goes, here, let me wrap you. Let me hold you while you feel yourself. Will you get the clarity as to why you're always running, why you're always snapping, why you're always reactive? Let me hear you. Let me feel you. Let me see you. And when you allow yourself space to do that, It's like the weight comes off. You soften into yourself. So we have a normal processing of always coming back to the center point. The divine love always pulls us back to the center. To masculine, it gives us the feminine. To feminine, it gives us the masculine. Our job is to recognize and catch it so that we can course correct before things pull too far to the right or too far to the left. It's stopping that pendulum swing by really recognizing yourself. But as long as we're fixed on the external, we're not looking at the internal. And that is where the world of shadows has created the illusion. We seek out there where truth is in here. The second stage, it involves the precision of bringing more light into the world, and it spreads the transmission of your awakening to others. In a symbolic sense, this is where we see a mother or a father really doing their own inner work, really kind of looking at their reactive nature or their repressive nature and feeding themselves with more self-love, self-care, doing their healing work, moving through their traumas, being the best version that they can be. And as a result of that, the children benefit. Their relationships benefit. So it's a process of you bringing more light into yourself that then feeds out into the world around you. And when you show up as your authentic self, other people have permission to be authentic in your presence. When you start respecting yourself, other people have to respect you because you will put up healthy boundaries and you will use your voice to say, that's not how you talk to me. We teach people how to treat us. So it really does start to awaken in somebody else. When the heart is leading the way, it uses logic to describe what it sees and what it feels, and others cannot help but listen. So this is where you use your intelligence, your channel of organizing, your power of communication to use your logic, but it's coming from the heart. And people can hear it, people can feel it, people can't help but tune in deeper to listen because there's something in that vibration that is cutting like a knife to get to the heart of the matter. That's precision. It doesn't come with a lot of words. It doesn't come with a lot of fluff. It doesn't come with needing proof. It is felt so deeply in the body that maybe the hairs on your arm are standing up. Maybe something in the back of your neck is like a tingling up the spine. Maybe you just all of a sudden turn your head in that direction because your cells are listening. Your inner being hears the truth. It hears that language of light coming through. It happens when natural intelligence is striking a balance between the heart and the mind. So the heart, feminine, the mind, masculine. We're here to use our mind, but not to be the driver. It is here to be the observer. The heart, the high heart, pure love is here to guide the way. So precision happens when that heart, the feminine aspect, is given control over life. And the masculine, our intellect, our mind, it moves into the service of the feminine, the heart, which means you're guiding the way by intuition, by listening, by being receptive, receiving, tuning into the world around you, not by thinking, expressing, and transmuting. It is like the saying of intelligence recognizes intelligence, which means that when you're feeling the energies around you, and if you're an empath, you're going to really understand this. You just have this connection when someone is expressing a hurt, a pain, a situation, and you don't know their story, but you can feel their energy inside of you. It's like when you're out in Mother Earth, the mind will go, that's a tree. It's this tall, it's this kind of species, it's this big in diameter. That's all from the mind. Those are all very logical. They can all be proven facts. But intelligence feels the tree. It invites in the tree. It becomes one with the tree. It doesn't see itself as separate from that. It's also where you learn to build your relationship to your soul self, your higher self. You're not separate from God, source, the creator, whatever that energy is you call it. It is within you. The mind is what keeps us in that illusion of separation. But your inner wisdom, your intellect, can recognize that within others, can recognize that within yourself, which is why sometimes you find those individuals and you have an instant connection. You recognize something in there. You can't explain it. It sees what the mind cannot see. And this moves us into the highest light aspect, the Sudi of impeccability. And to pull a quote from the teachings of the Gene Keys, and to use Richard Rudd's wording, it is the manifestation of impeccability in which your every movement and breath becomes an emanation of pure light. Your whole being is simply made up of living, intelligent lines of force that move and flow without resistance. There is no longer anything out of place within your being. There is no longer any need, agenda, or discomfort. All is exactly as it should be in you and in everyone else. The embodiment of this truth leads to ultimate peace. You have crossed the great divide in the throat and can never again return to the illusion of separation. You have entered into the language of light itself to see the one word in all words, the phantomless, the ineffable, the wordless, the impeccable beauty of being. And as you can see, there's much to learn. There are many reasons, many facts, many journeys through proof that we go searching for. But there is no proof. You already are. And when you really learn to fall in love with yourself and you allow yourself to just have a curious mind, to go back to what it is to be childlike, to play, to have fun, to connect with your joy, to not be so critical on yourself, then you're naturally gonna offer that grace out to the rest of the world. So use the high energy available to you through that channel of organization, through the gift of your express detail to help raise the vibration by raising your own inner light first. Organize your own thoughts to question why. Why do I want to do that? Who is that ultimately going to serve? What am I chasing? What am I trying to prove? What is that fear story? And the more you take your time to just breathe that back into you instead of being so reactive, so quick to jumping into something, you're going to start to really recognize the power of making decisions from the clarity of your inner knowing versus the program of the mind that keeps us stuck in those repetitive patterns and cycles. So have some fun with this energy. We have one more gate left to end us out of Cancer season and then to start merging us into Leo season. It is another one back up in that throat center. And I look forward to sharing the teachings of that one with you as we continue our journey through the mandala wheel, blending together the teachings of human design, the gene keys, and really looking at that inner alchemy work through Lightworker coaching. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.